Murder on the Inside, the true story of the deadly riot at Kingston Penitentiary. Written and narrated by Catherine Fogarty. Biblioasis, Windsor, Ontario. For my dad, Edward Charles Fogarty, who instilled a passion for learning and a love for reading. I love you and I miss you. The penitentiary will not be a place where the criminal can hide from the public and forget his responsibilities as a citizen. It will be a place where he will learn the skills and develop the self-control that he must have before he can expect to be accepted as a free member of the world. Commissioner of Penitentiaries, A. J. MacLeod, 1966. Introduction. 50 years ago, on April 14, 1971, a small group of inmates at Kingston Penitentiary, Canada's oldest prison, overpowered unsuspecting guards and instigated what was to become one of the most violent and devastating prison riots in our country's history. The early 1970s was a time of great political and social upheaval, and what was happening in our prisons reflected that change. Deteriorating prison conditions and the increasing awareness of basic human rights were creating a combustible penal environment both in Canada and south of the border. The civil rights movement of the 1960s had given rise to a new breed of inmate, politically aware young men with radical ideas of rights and freedoms. Prisoners wanted to be treated like humans instead of numbers, and they were demanding to be heard. You have taken our civil rights, but we want our human rights, read a banner hanging outside the prison walls in Kingston during the riot. But what began as a rallying cry to the outside world for prison reform and justice quickly dissolved into a tense hostage-taking, savage beatings, and ultimately murder. For 4 terrifying days, prisoners held 6 guards hostage as they negotiated with ill-prepared prison officials and anxious politicians, while heavily armed soldiers surrounded the prison and prepared for an attack. It was an insurrection unprecedented in scope and savagery, but the deadly ingredients for the riot had been brewing long before that fateful night in April. The warden of Kingston Penitentiary had alerted his superiors in Ottawa that the prison was dangerously overcrowded and understaffed. Another aggravating factor was the recent transfer of inmates to a new penitentiary called Millhaven. Rather than welcome a chance to leave the aging structure they were in, Kingston Pen prisoners were terrified of the newly built super-maximum prison, which was rumored to be even more repressive with security cameras and hidden microphones monitoring inmates' every move. But the danger signs were not heeded, and the years of mistreatment, bitterness, and distrust ultimately created a human volcano inside the prison. Life inside the archaic jail was humiliating and dehumanizing. There was serious overcrowding, few rehabilitation programs, severe punishments, and extreme isolation. When the rebellion finally erupted, it made headlines around the world, as did another prison riot 6 months later in Attica, New York, where 39 guards and inmates were killed by police fire.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?